Hi, this is Brian, and welcome to another episode of Wait, What BS is This? Today, I'm going to talk about a kind of touchy subject, equality. Now, how we define equality is probably the same. How it's executed in our society is entirely the wrong way. The reason I say this is pretty simple. Being equal is not the same as proving you're discriminated against, and that's how the law sees equality. You write a law that says every person cannot be discriminated against, and that's not equality. Okay, being equal is saying, hi, I'm Brian, and you have a conversation and you share ideas, and that's it. Being equal is just that. And while equality is a difficult subject to really get into, we need to have this talk because being equal is an important part of our society. If we do not believe our accomplishments, and to a lesser extent, and our contributions are not the same as others, then we fail uh, in our in progressing further into civilization because we've had pretty much the same society in varying forms for the last 3,000 years. You know, the Greeks philosophically were the basis for pretty much everything that follows. And we haven't really changed. You know, people subject each other to repression and oppression every single day. And that's the simple truth. And we haven't evolved past that. We haven't changed any of that. Here's an example. Let's talk about the Me Too movement. Okay, so the assumption is that 95 to 97% of the Me Too claims are true. Okay, now we can't say they're all true because some of them have already been proven false because people try to take advantage of the situation and screw it up for everyone else. But the assumption is 95 to 97% at least are true. But the problem with that is that even if 10% are true, the least reported violent crime in our nation and probably around the world is sexual assault. Because look, you have to look at it. You're out either having a good time or just minding your own business, and someone you don't know or someone you do know, which is even worse, comes up and traumatizes you. And the cops then go to ask some really uncomfortable questions, because they kind of have to. And that they have to because the determination of whether a crime is committed, because the bar is fairly high, requires these questions. Now, pardon me, some cops are more aggressive and demeaning about it, and it makes it even harder. But so you go through this, and then you get asked really uncomfortable questions. So even if you go a couple days later after the trauma has kind of settled itself down, it refreshes the problem or the trauma. And so then, especially the issue is that then after they ask these questions, after they've gone through the process of humiliating you over and over again, they tell you got to go to the hospital. And what do they do at the hospital? They take a rape kit. Now, what is a rape kit? For those of you who have never had one, basically a rape kit is a DNA swab, but they probe where you were assaulted. And that, they just dig around trying to find something. And it's gross, it's disgusting, and it's uncomfortable. So I can see why sexual assault would be the least or most underreported violent crime, because you don't want to go through a traumatizing event over and over again. I mean, you deal with, especially if you've dealt with something like that, you replay it in your head more than once, trying to figure out what happened. Because especially if you're like me, you need kind of certitude on what you could have done differently so that you can learn from the mistake and continue. But for this, it's just kind of soul crushing. And so I can see why it's the most underreported crime. And so thinking about that, the reports I've read is somewhere between 10 to 25% of rapes are actually reported. And if that's the case, then if 10% of the Me Too, if only 10% of the Me Too claims are right, then what does that say about our society? What does it say about how we treat women? What does it say about the progress of equality in our society? And it says a lot. And if this makes you uncomfortable, you really need to think about it. Because if this makes you uncomfortable, then you're not necessarily part of the problem, but you have to really dig deep and find how you feel about this. Because this is important. You have to have it, just like anything else, we have to have a certitude and an idea of how we're going to handle things. And it's to a lesser extent, it's the same for racism and discrimination. And that is a prevalent problem. It's even more prevalent than the underreporting of rape. And it's insane that this conversation even needs to be had. Because, 1964, we had the Civil Rights Act passed, which unfortunately is the last real decent piece of legislation Congress ever passed. State governments have gotten closer to modern norms with their legislation, but until the federal government gets to that level, we've got nothing. The ADA Act, all the ADA Act did was extend protections to differently abled people in order so they could be accommodated and participate in activities they can do but can't get to. And so, this is, equality isn't non-discrimination. And so what is equality? Well, it's being equal. And people don't understand that because they a lot, and there are some people who understand that, but most people don't understand that equality isn't the government saying you're equal and you're welcome. Equality is saying, okay, well, you have an idea. Let's take this into consideration at the same time as my idea. Now, the quality of ideas is another story, but everything should be given equal consideration unless it's just a repetition of something that's already been suggested. And people have a tendency to do that also, but we're not talking about that. And it shouldn't matter what you look like. It shouldn't matter how you dress. It shouldn't matter who you are or who you sleep with. None of that. It doesn't matter if the idea is sound or even if it's simply taking leadership from someone else. It shouldn't matter what the public's perception of it is or what the public's belief is. It should only matter that the person can do the job. And so when it comes to equality, we're on different wavelengths. And this is not just me talking to you. This is people on the street. People and the issue you have to see with this is that anytime you defer to someone, even except out of respect, yeah, every time you defer to someone, you're giving up your equality. Every time you say, okay, well, we'll do it your way because you say so, without questioning it, unless it's proven to work, that's giving up your equality. And when it comes to that, it's the reason we have different layers of society. And that is a more instinctual and visceral thing than we give ourselves credit for. It's where we've come from instead of where we're headed. And we have to stop thinking about where we've come from. We have to go where we're headed. And this is a conversation we need to be having everywhere. This is a conversation we should be having when it comes to important stuff. And while we shouldn't sweat the small things, and everything is supposedly small things, there are very important things that we dismiss. And this is one of them. Anyway, until next time, have a wonderful day. And for those of you who live in San Francisco who know me, you'll probably see me in a couple weeks, maybe sooner. Have a great day.